Good evening to everybody. Shalom Aleichem. It's good to see everybody again and to hopefully spend some time with everybody and share some thoughts. And in the world that we're living in, the modern day Megillah, that's being read, as I've said during the course of this week. I spoke both in the yeshiva and I spoke last week in another yeshiva for Americans, Rabbi Shmooze Brazil's yeshiva, Zivat Torah. And I said over that the Mishnah says we're learning now, besides the Daf Hayomi, we're doing a review on Masechta Megillah. Every year we try to learn Masechta Megillah as best as we can. The Mishnah starts Megillah Nikres, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Daled. We're getting closer. But Megillah Nikres, the Megillah is being read. And I said over that the concept is that it's not just the Megillah Esther, it's our own Megillah Esther. In our own world, in our own time today, and we see clearly the way the Ribono Shel Olam is allowing the world to move forward or to move backwards, however you look at it. It's just crazy times that we're living in. And what is the Megillah telling me? You see, you have to be really like a Adam Gadol, and you got to be a Navi to be able to say exactly what this Megillah is being read. And we know that during the time of the Megillah, the times of Esther and Mordechai, people also didn't know. Just looked like a regular scene, there was what's called politics, you know what I mean? There were politicians, and there were coalitions, and this one says like this, and this one says like that. And in the midst of everything, we know that the real gezerah, the real decrees are against the Jews. That's really what it comes down to. And if it's up to the Hamans of the world, they would get rid of the Jews in one day, in one fell swoop. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always watching over us. So we have to ask ourselves, we can't necessarily understand the Megillah that's being read today completely, but we can get glimpses. We can get little glimpses. I just want to, just an aside, before Yisrael came over, I saw a clip of the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi David Lau, who flew to Moldova. He went to the main shul in Moldavia where they have hundreds and hundreds of refugees who are sleeping on the floors in the shul. So they're very interesting. The Beis HaKnesses is turning into a bias, turning into a house. It's always a Beis HaKnesses. He said, but it's the biggest mitzvah. People need places to live. So the shul is being turned into a house to live. And the numbers of refugees is really, it's unheard of. Literally millions of Ukrainians that have had to leave, that have left, that fled. And it's not a small country. Ukraine has, I think, over 40 million people. Not a small country. So 2 million people it's a lot of people, and they don't know what's going to be. And out of those 2 million, many of them are Yidden that are trying to get away. And I heard there's over 250,000 refugees that they know about right now that have left the country. Israel, they're talking about taking in 15,000, which doesn't sound like a lot. And they're not sure if they're all Jews or they're not Jews. It doesn't make a difference. But they're saying they're going to take in, they're going to have to be collect over 15,000 people. And the refugee problem is, besides the death and the war, which is the most horrific part of this war, but the refugee problem could be a problem that could be for years and years. No one knows how long this thing is going to continue for. And if we think about it, you take a look at the pictures, the scenes, horrific scenes of communities being bombarded by most modern day armament that there is, and people are dying, and people are being wounded, and people are running, and the shuls that were built up over the last 30 years, rebuilt. There's the main shul, I think, in Kharkov, the tremendous shul and everything else, and they had a bombing, and in the basement they have people that are refugees underneath, and all the windows were blasted out. That's just brings back visions of World War II, the scenes that we saw in clips or movies, but now it's really in real time. In real time, it's really real time of what's really going on. So how does one look at it? What kind of hashkafas can we maybe take from the Divrei Chazal? And also, I said that we're going to try to tie in a little bit keep on the theme of the Gedolim series, So first of all, I just want to say over that I think one of the pictures you can see in the back is a picture of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. In 1991, when the Gulf War broke out, so I was, then running the yeshiva, fledgling yeshiva. The yeshiva was then located in Arnov, and that was before the Katamon days. And I think I might have, discussed this story, but it's just worthwhile to see it into perspective of the Gedol and the way they look at things. And I think last time I spoke a little bit about the relationship that I had with Rav Shach, and how Rav Shach, gave me advice that I should keep the yeshiva going and everything else. But at one point, I had to make a decision about something that came up, which is right around the deadline that the Iraqis had given, that they're going to shoot missiles into Kuwait, and then they said they're going to threaten to shoot missiles into Israel. And at that time, I had 2 weddings. Now, weddings sound like, who could think about weddings? Yeah, I had to think about wedding. One wedding was my youngest brother, Chaim, who was then getting married. And it was a big simcha, and it was the first simcha that our late father wasn't going to be able to be at. And also, there was a Talmud of Ner Yaakov that was getting married in Minneapolis a week beforehand. I was asked to be Messiah Kedushin. And I had a big dilemma. I had the yeshiva that was running. The news was that, they threatened that they're going to shoot missiles into Israel. What do you do if they shoot missiles into Israel? How can I leave? Am I allowed to leave? Should I leave? Well, there's a wedding. Now, there had been other deadlines, and the things got pushed off. So we decided, our family, the Rebbetzin and my brother and my sister-in-law, decided to go to Shlomo Zalman to ask him what we should do, what he felt. And I remember Shlomo Zalman sitting with us in his room in his house in Shari Chesed, and he gave us just, his beatific smile and his calmness. And what he said was basically that in Eretz Yisrael, there's always war alerts, and there's things that have happened in the past, and you really don't know if it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? It's just that's, and we know we've been here. During what we've been going on for the last few years. The sirens and missiles and everything else. We ourselves have been hit. But at that time, chemical warfare was something which was very, very new. And Shlomo Zalman said to us, he said, "You know what? I want to tell you what's going to happen. The weeks before the deadline, the war drums are going to be beating, and all the papers and all the news, they're going to be hyping it up, and there's going to be talk about, it's happening, and people are going to get nervous and nervous and nervous." He says, so first thing you have to know is that a lot of it is just the papers are just, playing it up. And you have to know that the Rebbeinu Shem is running the world, and you have to follow your life to the best of your ability. You can't go crazy over the news. You have to be able to follow and lead your life. If you lead your life in the most regular fashion that you can, and that includes, if there's a time of simcha, to try to go to the simcha. Now, the question then was a little bit more delicate because we had children, and had a yeshiva that was running. So what do we do? So it happened to be that our sister-in-law, wonderful sister-in-law, Mrs. Simi Liff Kamenetsky, who is a great woman. She said she doesn't want to go through it. She wants to stay here because she wants to be with her children, and she's going to bring our children to live with her, so we don't have to worry about it. Now, the truth is that we were coming back like the day of the deadline, so we weren't planning on not being here, but we just were planning what happens if the deadline comes and we're not here and stuff like that. And Shlomo Zalman said, he says, "I'm not a Navi, but I think that in Yerushalayim things are going to be all right." And it happened to be his not prophetic prophecy came true because nothing happened in Yerushalayim itself. And I remember that we flew to America, and I was able to attend the 2 weddings, and I was dealing with the yeshiva from afar. And then we flew back, and we ended up landing mamish the day before the day before the deadline. And I ended up going straight to the yeshiva, and the Rebbetzin came home and took care of the kids. And then the night after we landed, all of a sudden, then the sirens started going off. We had to get into the sealed rooms. And then it was scary, sealed rooms. gas masks. Everyone was worried about the gas, explosions. And there were 39 missiles that were fired into Israel at the time. No one got hurt except for one person in a freak accident, and they say the person wasn't a Shomer Shabbos, and it was an anti-Shabbos person. I'm not going into the judgment of the Rebbeinu Shalom, what happened, but there were literally miracles upon miracles upon miracles. And just like it happened then, I think it's worthwhile to understand that we can't fully understand the impact of what's going on now. Who is, I think I said this, I said Tufshin Pei Beis, it's someone said over a little acronym, Teheshnas Putin Biden. Yeah, it's going to be the year of Putin and Biden. We don't know who is Putin. Putin, on one hand, has not been an enemy of the Jewish people. He's allowed the Yidden in Russia to be able to build communities, and even though he's a communist and he's an ideological person who's against the West, but there's still freedom of religion in Russia, and it's not like the way it was under the communists. And what put into his mind is he got to go ahead and do this. He's been planning this because in his mind, this is what he wants to do. He wants to reassert the Russian Empire, and he doesn't want to let Ukraine have independence and be part of the West. And the West wants Ukraine to have a democracy. And who's the person that's going up against him? A little Yiddle Zelensky. And Zelensky, he's not from, but Lamaisa, he's standing up. He's standing up, and he's not leaving. He's not running away. And I said over this pasuk this week, which we see from the Megillah says that Mordechai comes to Esther, and he says, "Don't think you're going to be able to run away. If you're going to be quiet now, there's going to be a salvation for the Jewish people in another place, but you're not going to be saved. Who knows if this is the moment that you were put in order to stand up for the kingdom, for the king? Why did you become the queen of 127 Medinas? In those days, it was the old school Persia, to save the Jewish people. And what happens? She decides then to stand up, even though the logic dictated that she wasn't going to be successful because of everything that she said. Anyone that goes in will be killed. But what does she say? She says, Leich, Knesses, call the Yehudim, gather all the Jews together. You're going to fast, Sumu Alai, and I'm willing to go in, and they're going to cry, and we're going to daven together. Rabbi said, I saw some of the organizations that are caring about our brothers and our sisters. It's really amazing. And the truth is, people are really stepping up to the plate. They need tremendous amounts of money. And the money that I know that I personally sent is, what I personally sent. And I know what other people are doing. It's really amazing to see what we are, what we're all about. And some of the non-Jews in Ukraine are saying, you guys are taking care of why can't I be Jewish? Why can't I be Jewish? That's a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. But really, I think that what I want to bring out is that from the Megillah, that our modern day Megillah is telling us that we have to recognize Im le'eis hazoi sigat l'malchus. Is this the time that we have to stand up? And standing up means, yes, it means giving whatever we can, supporting the organizations that are out there, be it Hatzalah, be it in Nitchais, whoever is involved. I'm not here to say where you should send money to, but they need big, big sums. And we have to save our fellow brothers and sisters, our Yiddish breeder. We have to feel the pain, and we have to try to make ourselves available for them. And my brother told me up in the Ve'er Shalayim that they have a Ukrainian family that moved into the campus, and it seems all the girls in the campus all going, what can we get you? What can we get you? Tremendous heartwarming, scenes to see. And we have to say, this is our time of Malchus. I just think about it, if we would go back to World War II, and we would think about our brothers and sisters, and if we had the opportunity to be able to save a brother and a sister, what would we not do in order? We wouldn't stop at anything. And over here, we have to realize we cannot stop at anything. We have to give our utmost. And everyone's doing a lot. But we have to, now what else can we do? What else can we do besides supporting monetarily? Kayach hatfila, Rabbi Isai. Tsumu alai. That's what Esther says. And I said over this unbelievable story this week, and I said it over last night to a Talmud of mine at a wedding. In the 1970s, there was a lawyer by the name of Shmuel Tamir. He was the Attorney General of Israel under Begin. And at that point, there was a discussion about making legalized abortions. That was the issue that was coming. And he was for legalized abortions. That's what he held. The woman has a right to make a decision over her child. So the Rabbanim at that time, they felt that they have to meet with him. And it wasn't like today where the Rabbanim are kind of like shunted aside. And they made an appointment with him, and they decided they're going to bring the son of Rabbi Aryeh Levin, or Befol Levin. Befol Levin was such a tzaddik. He was Elyashiv's brother-in-law. And I happened to have known him. I was by him many times. I drove him in the car. A real tzaddik, son of Rabbi Aryeh Levin, the tzaddik of Yerushalayim. So Rabbi Befol said, I'm willing to come, and I'm willing to speak, but only on one condition, that the yeshivas make a Yom Tefillah the day beforehand. There should be the power of Tefillah. So they made a gathering, and all the yeshivas said they're going to make a Yom Tefillah. And then the next day, this group of Rabbanim went to visit Shmuel Tamir in his offices, and they asked Rabbi Folovin to be the head speaker. Rabbi Fol says, I want to tell you over a story. 60 years ago, a couple came to my father, Rabbi Aryeh, and they were from Yerushalayim. They're a very poor family, Svardish poor family. And the woman was pregnant, and she said, Rav, ani rotzeh heter lapil et ubar shali. I want a heter to be able to make an abortion. So Rav Aryeh said, you can't give a heter, it's ritzicha, you can't do that. She says, Rav, ein lanu klum babayit. I'm poor. We don't have anything to support a child. We can't bring a child into the world. We have nothing to support him. We're destitute. So Rabbi Aryeh Levin said, if that's the whole problem, I take upon myself the first 5 years that I will support this child. I'll pay for his clothing, I'll pay for his food, I'll pay for his education, doctor's expenses, anything you need, ze alai. The woman said, really? She said, Im kacha, and I give you a bracha, mit Hashem, he's going to be a healthy child, he'll be a good child, and you'll get a lot of nachas from him. So she decided to keep the baby. So Rafal Levin turned to the Shmuel Tamir and he says, I want you to know that that couple was your parents. Your parents. And my father helped to save you. And if your mother would not have listened to my father, then you wouldn't be here today. Whoa. He was dumbstruck. He was, wow, a thunderbolt. So he said, I never heard the story. He said, I have to think about this. And the Rabbanim left, and that night, afterwards, he called his mother. His father had passed away, and he says, Ima, yesh sipur iti im Rabbi Aryeh Levin? He says, Ken. And she says over the whole story, and exactly what Rafala said. She said, Im Ken, ani mevatel et ha'gzeira. And he called up Rabbi Fal, called up the Rabbanim, and he said, we're going to be mevatel ha'gzeira. Unbelievable Maisa. So the Rabbanim came to Rabbi Fal and said, Rabbi Fal, then, you had the ace of spades. What an unbelievable story. You know exactly what you were going to say to him. So what did you need the tefillahs? That story itself would have shocked him out of it. You hear the kasha? So Rabbi Fal said, if we wouldn't have had the koyach of tefillah, then the story would have gone in one ear and it would have gone out the other ear. Even though he was saved. He would not have it wouldn't have impacted upon him. Because that's the nature of man. The nature of man is that, okay, it was a nice story, a nice maisa, and even though it was neged to me, but this is the new world. The new world, we have to change. But because of the tefillahs, that's what happened. The tefillahs changed the decree. And the story, the hishtadlus of the story only worked because the koyach tefillah. Rabbi says we have to understand the story of the Megillah in the modern day Megillah. We have to realize our koyach tefillah, and we have to believe in our tefillah. I heard from a Ner Yaakov Talmud, Yaakov Ginniger, who is involved with Operation Inspire, and he's also involved with a lot of organizational. Josh, you know Josh, right? Right? Yaakov Ginniger. He's involved with setting up a lot of different events. So he was involved with the Dirshu event this past weekend in New Jersey, where they had the Siyum of the Mishnah Berurah, and a tremendous event. And my Rebbe, Rabbi Liff Feinstein, was one of the guests that came. And it seems Shabbos morning they had a special minyan, an early minyan, and after minyan they had a kiddush and the question and answer period with Rabbi Liff. And there were like 200 people that were questioning and peppering with all kinds of questions. Many of the questions were all about, I know about this matzah, but it's more about emunah and bitachon and ishtadlus and tsaris that are going on in the world, tsaris are going on by people. And Rabbi Liff was giving a lot of answers. In the middle, he stopped and he said, Rabbis, I want to tell you one thing. We can speak all we want about emunah and bitachon, but we have to realize if we don't believe that everything is in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we don't have a true emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then talking and speaking and everything else is not going to help. It's only when we finally get to the point of understanding that everything is in the hands of the Rabbi Shalom. Tzaddik b'manos tichya. When I realize I'm in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When I realize I'm in the hands of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there's no one else to turn to except for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Kol Yochel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He's the one that can save me, that's when things happen. Rabbi said, what's going on in the world? There's a major war. It could configurate into a World War III. Nuclear weapons. That's the talk, the discussion. No one ever talked about that for the last 25, 30 years, that we're going to use the nuclear weapons. It's all about, we're going to take away the nuclear weapons. No, the nuclear weapons are there. Dangerous. But there's a Rabbi Shalom in the world. The Rabbi Shalom runs the world. But it's only if you have true emunah, true bitachon. And this is the message that Esther gives to Mordechai. She finally gets it. I'm standing now at my time of Malchus, and I have to stand up. And I need everyone to gather together. And you have to pray and you have to daven. And that's what we have to do. The praying and the davening is not just lip service. It has to, I really, really feel and mean it. There's nothing else that's going to get us to salvation. Rabbi said today was Zion Adar, Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday and Moshe Rabbeinu's yahrzeit. I always say over this fantastic word that, that Haman, he was very happy when it came out in the month of Adar because he said, oh, that's the month that what? That Moshe Rabbeinu dies, so it's a bad mazel. And Chazal say that he didn't realize that what? It was the month that he was born. Right? Now, I always ask the question. I said, I understand. If he knew Jewish history, he knew the yahrzeit list, he should have known the birthday list too. And the Lashon Chazal is Yom Shemeis Bay, Yom Shenoilad Bay. The day he died, that's the day he was born. So, what, he only knew the yahrzeit list? That's it. He got the luach with the yahrzeit. He didn't see the birthday list. The terrace is that he knew the birthday was that. That didn't deter him. Because he said if Moshe Rabbeinu dies, he held that Misa is finality. It's finished. He didn't believe in the world to come. He didn't believe in Olam Haba. He believed it's that whatever man does in this world, power, might, money, everything else, that's what works. When he saw that Moshe Rabbeinu died, so Moshe Rabbeinu is finished. When the Chazal say Yom Shenoilad Bo, it's not only going on Moshe Rabbeinu's physical birth. We believe in the nitzchius of man. And that when a person is nifter, he goes into Olam Haba. Tzaddikim go into Olam Haba. So I brought down in the Sefer today. And that's the pshat. The pshat is he missed the boat. He knew Yom Shenoilad Bo. But he said the most important thing is Yom Shemeis Bo. He didn't realize Yom Shel, even when Moshe Rabbeinu is nifter, he's still alive. He's still born. I saw it brought down, if we really analyze Moshe Rabbeinu, every single day, we are saying over thousands and millions of Jews are saying over halachas and brachas and dinim, all from Moshe Rabbeinu. Torah's Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is chai v'kayam. He's Yom Shenoilad by. Because we truly believe in Nitzchias. So we have to believe that the Nitzchias all comes about from what? From HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Kol Yachal. And I think this powerful lesson and these stories that we see from Gedolim, how they recognize, and this I think is important. I want to bring out from Shlomo Zalman that we have to have the balance in everything that's going on in the world. On one hand, we have to realize there's a very serious situation, and we have to do our utmost to help our brothers and sisters, no matter where they are. And the help is in whatever hishtadlus physically that we can do, and at the same time to recognize spiritually what we can do. And our davening and our tzedakah, all these things are tremendous chusim for Klal Yisrael. It's a matzah of leich kanais. And at the same time, I heard from Shlomo Zalman and from many of the Gedolim to have the balance of life. What's the balance of life? Is that you can't go crazy. Don't listen to the news the whole time and think that everything is dependent upon the news. The news is there, but it's the Rebbeinu Shem running the world. And what does a person have to do? You know what we did this week? Thousands and thousands of Jews around the world have completed Masechta Chagiga and Seder Mayid. And when was Seder Mayid learnt? For the last 2 years. It started mamish around the time of the beginning of Corona, around Purim time 2 years ago. And now we're completing it. And we're starting Seder Nashim. And it's a daily activity. Not just an activity, it's a daily bracha that we have in our lives. That we and our families, the Nashim Tzidkonis, allow the husbands to go. And today it's become, I was speaking to someone yesterday, it's become Baruch Hashem. It's almost like a Dover Pashut. Like, I gotta go. I got a Daf Yomi share. Stefanski's Daf Yomi. This one's Daf. Shirley Bronstein's Daf Yomi. There's so many Daf Yomi. The Shul Daf Yomi. And it's a bracha that we have. It's a bracha that we have. A Klal Yisrael has. And I was thinking, I'm sure that there are Yidden right now in Ukraine that haven't made it out, or the ones that did make it out, and they're at the borders. And they're also learning the daf. They just started Yavamis. And this is really what the kayach of Klal Yisrael. The kayach of Klal Yisrael is that we realize that the Rebbeinu Shem is with us. And the Rebbeinu Shem is always with us. And what can we do now that now we stand up, we say, this is the time, La'is HaMalchus Shali. What can I do to stand up strong for the Melech Malchei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's the real Melech, and then the Rebbeinu Shem will intercede on our behalf. So I thought that this should be will be a nice way for us to go into this coming Shabbos. We're going to have Parsha Zachar. We're going to lay in the Parsha of Amalek, Zachar Sh'asacha Amalek. And again, we don't know who the different participants, who's Putin in the Megillah, who's the Esther, who's the Zelensky. But we do know one thing: Yidden stand together, and when we stand together, then nothing can defeat us. So what we say to everybody is Leich Kanaisis Kol Yehudim. Let's give what we can to help those that are in times of need, and it's a tremendous chus. Let's daven and let's have a mun and bitachon that the Rebbeinu Shalom, He's the one that's going to resolve everything. And we shouldn't get too distracted by all the news. We have to continue our daily lives, and we have to make sure that our limud and our davening and our family lives continue mitzvah Hashem, and we should be zoicha mitzvah Hashem through all our efforts to be zoicha. This Shabbos, it should be a Shabbos kodesh for all of Klal Yisrael. It should be a Shabbos filled with a lot of bracha. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, Purim is coming up in a week, and we hope and we pray that this month, the month should be nefach. L'sasim l'simcha, gadol ha'Yehudim, ratzu l'rayvechav, darish tov la'amai, and mitzvah Hashem will be zoich to Mashiach Tzidkeinu v'heirev yameinu, amen. Wishing everyone a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. Thank you very much for listening. We want to thank JFoundations.com. If you could sponsor any of our activities, it'd be another way of addressing and being able to give over Torah to other people. Go on the website and show your support. Thank you very much for joining us.